Hello?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, now I hear you. Now that's great.
Ray. Yeah, sorry about that. I'm not that good on technology anyway, so I went through the conventional things and it wasn't working.
Yeah,
Never
no
mind.
problem. Never mind. Yeah,
Yeah,
no problem. How
I
are you?
need a technology assistant. I'm really good. I'm really, really good. And
Good.
I'm not sure how much you know about what I do, but just crack on and ask me any questions. Because this is my book. That I don't know whether this comes as
Oh,
mirror vision,
oh,
but
that's
this is the
great. That's great.
yes.
That book.
Yep, I have a book, and it would be easier to show you on the laptop, but obviously that's not going to happen today. But yeah, that's what I deal with: is people who have a long history of debt, both personally and if they have their own businesses, they will often have the same issues in their business.
Oh, okay. That's great. So I have a little bit idea about the job of debtologist. I think last year I watched a documentary, a French documentary in France about debtologists who have been hired by some people who were in debt. They hired him to manage their debts, etc. Because a lot of people there uh, didn't know they were overspending, even in the grocery for managing monthly subscription, etc. They weren't aware that they were overspending. So I had a little bit idea about that. So
Oh,
tell
that's
me,
interesting. Was that a documentary in French?
yeah, in French language, yeah.
Oh, if you can find it and send me a link, I'd love to know because I can't find anybody in this country or anywhere that is dealing with this.
Yeah,
The nearest I've come to is people in treatment centres who deal with it when it comes across with drug addiction or food addiction or something like that, but no one who's actually dealing with people who have to be in debt. And the bit about overspending, I think it all leads, I call it all roads lead to Rome. So whether you're overspending or under earning or just generally being unpleasant so nobody wants to work with you. I mean, there's so many different ways people get back into debt again, and that's my sort of premise is there's a lot of other things than fixing the debt. Fixing the debt can be very quick, that's quite straightforward. It's staying out of debt and moving forward into dealing with what it's like to live without borrowing. And one of the most extreme case I came across is this guy, and he was kind of famous, and he started 23 publications, which were fabulous. Everybody loved them, and they were very famous in this country, fashion, music, whatever. He was on his 24th, and he bankrupted all of them. And he just said, I can't do this, I can't do this. So he became a therapist and now lives in
whoa,
America. But some people just cannot do what I call the sort of business of changing the way they behave around debt. And that's really what I deal with. I can fix the debt problem really quickly if someone wants me to, but often they blow it up. There's an organisation in this country called Citizens Advice, which is voluntary, and it's loads of volunteers, and almost every town or village has a group, and you can go there for help. And sometimes it's with something political or something connected with the police, or all sorts of things. You can go and you can get advice. And I've done a few talks with senior members of Citizens Advice, and they have said they find it a complete mystery how they will help people get out of debt, and then they'll come back a year, 2 years, 6 months, whatever it is later, in a worse state than when they finished. So it's a lot more than over shopping. It's a whole, one of the main signals, the red flags, are vagueness. How much do you earn? Don't know. How much do you owe? Don't know. How much do you need to earn in order not to debt? Don't know. I mean, it's just this cloud in people's minds, anything to do with finance. But in the moment, they think they have to borrow money. So that's one of the big things I say to people. You've got to cut off all access to further debt. And then we've got to get a clear picture of actually what you need to spend. I know people who've earned one girl, she was earning 12,000 a month, and she'd never been on a bus. She'd never been on public transport. And she had a boyfriend. I think she even had a husband in the background. Amy, it was phenomenal. But she was spending like you would not believe. So it's not necessarily about how much you earn. It's how much you need to live on or want to live on, because some people want to have fabulous lifestyles, and that's fine as well. But in the beginning, it's not hard to fix the debt. What's hard to fix is the mind, the way of thinking around it. And that reflects in business. You know, how many people, I don't know what it's like in Morocco, but in London, we're surrounded by actors, artists, painters. And I meet these painters, they never paint. I meet these actors, they never act. And you're just going, you know, you went to drama school, that's caused a lot of money. Would you like to be an actor? And they go, oh, yeah, it's just the business is terrible at the moment. It's been terrible for the 30 years of my experience. And then you find out they are unpleasant, they are arrogant, they are, you know, incredibly difficult to suggest. So goodness knows what a director does with them. When you say, could you, you know, behave a little bit more pleasantly, and they just look at you like, do you know who you're talking to? And you go, yeah, an unemployed actor. And I find the same in so many areas of the arts, which I think is why so many debtors are attracted to the arts. It's not the arts itself. It gives them the excuse to carry on with their behaviour.
Yeah.
Any more questions?
Interesting. That's so true. Yeah, in Morocco, it's a different story, because here it's difficult to get a loan. Okay, it's difficult to get a loan. Even if you have a business, even if the business is successful, it's so difficult to go to a bank and to get a business loan or even a personal loan. Not the same thing as United States, in UK, or in developed country where it's easy. Because when I was student, I studied in Canada, and even as a student, I had, if I remember well, I have 2 or 3 credit cards. It's so easy to get a credit card. You can order it online. You can even go to a mall to shop, and people gonna give you, hey, do you want this $1,000 credit card? This is just for a student. And I think it's because the ease of getting a credit card or getting student loan or medical loan or business loan, that people didn't even study what they can do in their life or in their business. And when something goes wrong, they directly go into debt. This is what I think. Could you agree with that?
Yes, I mean, many countries throughout history, there's been all sorts of different ways people have tried to stop people from debting. Now, what I would suggest is, I don't know, but I have met people with cultures similar to Morocco where getting business debts or loans or credit cards is very hard. Is the people I come across, they're borrowing from their families. They're borrowing off their work, they're borrowing off their partners, their children. And it's always, you know, I've got this brilliant idea. I know the way out of this. I'm going to kill myself if you don't. And you'll find, I don't know whether you know people like this, but you might find there are people that you've come across who maybe are in their 40s and 50s and they're still students. They're still being supported by someone else. And they go, I will pay you back, and they don't. I don't know whether you've been out meal with friends, and there's always one who for some reason has forgotten their wallet or can't pay. And it's part of that symptom of just not being able to live without a state of borrowing. So it might be not be a legal borrowing, it might be an emotional borrowing. So you'll find, you know, I think in your culture, the men tend to have the jobs and the work, but you'll find that they are still sending their wives out to do some really crummy job. And they're going, oh yeah, she has to do that whilst I build up the business, and the business never gets built up. And, you know, this is, you know, something that, you know, because I love medieval history and it's fascinating. You go through the whole of Europe. I don't know about Africa because so little's written about African old history. It's still there. You still get the story of the guy taking the 2 cows down to the market and coming back with nothing, you know, and the family starving. because he's been promised something, or there's a whole culture of it. So that would be something that, you could think about in a culture like Morocco, because most of Africa, I think it's very hard to get loans. Most of China, I don't know about now, that might be changing over. India, I think's eased up a bit, but America is completely lost. It's completely lost. Canada's not so bad, but in America, I'm absolutely shocked by the stories I hear of literally thousands and thousands and thousands signed up for student loan, car loans, but people just living on credit cards. I need a holiday. Well, it's your third this year. Do you really need a holiday?
Yeah.
Yep. So that's another way of thinking about it, because that's what, I mean, in Britain, we've got this thing now called financial abuse. It's when one partner is abusing the other person's finances. And the most extreme case I came out of that was a woman. She was an architect. She had her own company. She was making really good money, and she had a brand new baby, and we met up, in a public place, and I was really shocked to see the baby was wrapped in tea towels. And I thought, well, maybe that's some weird thing that she's come up with. Her parents had given her £60,000 as a sort of gift for the birth of her baby. And when I said to her, why are you seeing me? She said, I haven't got enough money to feed the baby. And I was like, long story short, her husband had been, inverted commas, setting up a business for 7 years in something to do with IT. And he drained every single penny she had, including from his own child. I mean, that was the most extreme I came across. And when I suggested her that she separated her finances from her husband, which you can do, it takes a little bit of seeing a lawyer and getting it. It's not complicated. She absolutely went white as a sheet, and she never spoke to me again. And I think about her a lot, because I think that happens, both men and women. It's not exclusive to one side or the other. There are women who absolutely drain their husband's accounts and vice versa. Now it's called, in this country, it's called financial abuse, and it's against the law. I don't know how many people have been prosecuted for it, probably not many. I think it came into law 3 years ago. But that's another factor where one partner is constant, or a parent. I've seen parents living off their children the same way, children living off their parents into their late 50s, early 60s. And it is so difficult. I can spot it because I've been dealing with it for so long. And that's the point of my book, is for those who are close to someone like that to be able to spot these particular signs that happen to everybody who behaves with that debting mentality. I deserve, I'm right. And they often are victims. It's often, I've got mental health problems. No, they haven't. I'm ill all the time. I've got, an accident that happened 20 years ago. And you're like, it was 20 years ago. What have you done since? So I think it's a thing. And it's quite difficult, particularly, when people come to me and they're in chronic state of debt, they're often really desperate. That's why they finally come. And I suggest the mildest things and they just kick off. And I'm going, that's what their family and friends, the bank, the business, whatever it is having to engage with. And often, they get, certainly in this country, you can go bankrupt. And I think it's 2 years now until you can open another bank account. You might not be able to borrow for another year, but it's not long, and you can build it up again. And you just go. And I understand both sides of the fence, because from a commercial point of view, you have to be allowed to fail. Big businessmen have failed, and in the beginning. But I advocate people who have this problem, they do not borrow unless it's secured against something. So they can have a mortgage. If they don't pay the mortgage, the house is taken off them. They can lease a car, but if the payments aren't made, the car is taken off the road. And this can happen in a small way if they have I need £10 for whatever. You go, okay, you swap the bicycle. And when you pay the £10 back, the bicycle comes back. And this slowly starts to change their mentality a bit. They go, oh, actually, maybe I don't want the £10. Do you know what I mean? It's really interesting. I find it endlessly fascinating. I really do, how these small shifts. There was a guy, this was years ago, and we met up, and he was an incredibly good performer on stage of 1950s rock and roll. Outside that world, he was unbelievably stupid. But on stage, he was amazing. He was living in a van with a leak in the roof, so the rain came in. I mean, it was just ridiculous. And every time we met up, he would ask me to give him a cup of coffee because he had no money. And I think it was the third time I was like, so I said, all right then, let's see what's in your wallet. And he had some postage stamps. So I said, okay, give me those postage stamps and I'll get you a cup of coffee. He went berserk. He said, I had to queue up at the post office. I had to do this, that and the other for those postage stamps. And I said, yeah, and I had to work for the cappuccino I keep buying you. And he got it. It was incredible. He was suddenly like, oh, money is an exchange for something. It's not just a piece of paper or a bit of metal. It's an exchange. But what was interesting with him, because he wouldn't really look at what he was doing, is he slowly built up a business working for corporate events, things like New Year's Eve parties, whatever, weddings, where he and his band were performing. And he was really starting to do well and make good business. And he suddenly came to me and he said, I've decided I'm going to go environmentally friendly. I went, what? Okay, if that's what you want to do. He said, so I can't do any gigs after, I think it was 10:30, because that's when public transport closes. So he got rid of the van. And most of his band, like drummers and stuff, they're going, we're not going to go on the tube or the bus with our kits. So they dropped out and he had to cancel all his contracts. And you just go, that's mad. Yeah. But that's how addictive, that's the only word I can think of, it is. He just couldn't handle success. Just couldn't. So he buggered it up. I think if no one had paid him, he might have continued, but he was getting paid well, so he couldn't cope with it.
It's so difficult when you have a lot of debts, etc. Psychologically, it's gonna impact your life and your business, and also the life of your partner, as you said, an emotional abuse or anyway. So as I am doing business as a business owner, for now I have no debt. I am zero debt. I had some debt years ago. I paid off my debts. Yeah.
Brilliant.
But a lot of my followers, a lot of people watching me on YouTube or people with me, they might fall in a huge and critic debt. So my question to you, when people is in debt and he couldn't find any open door, any solution to that, you as a debtologist, when I go to you, what kind of service or what kind of help you're gonna do for me to get out of my debt?
Well, okay, there's a number of things to answer that question. One is, I can't meet any more people than I'm already meeting face to face, and I get a lot of people, and they are suicidal. They're feeling desperate. They're really, really desperate. So I can't manage it anymore, and that's when I wrote this book. So the Debtologist, the whole point of that is a lot of stuff's in there. The second point is, because they're in debt, they can't pay me. Mm-hmm. So my primary business is in property, and I'm very successful in that, and that's, worked very well. But I do this because I came from that background myself. So I do this, but I can't do any more. So I suggest, which I put on my social media, on my at the moment I'm doing a lot on TikTok because I'm still trying to work it all out. And the primary thing I say to people is cut up all access to debt. And people go, well, that's impossible. How am I going to feed myself? Well, people do tend to have stuff in the fridge. It's amazing. And actually, a lot of us could go for a day or two without eating. And it never gets that bad. Everyone feels it's going to get that bad, but it never does. So I say to people, cut up all access to debt. So you go to the family, if that's, the primary thing, and you say, do not, however much I scream and shout, do not lend me another penny. You go to friends, you go to family, you go to everybody, and you say, I am no longer going to borrow, and however much I kick off, do not lend me money. In this country, obviously, you would go to the credit card companies, and you'd go to the bank where you're overdrawn, you'd go to the store cards, there's so many accesses to loans in this country, and you'd say no more, and you cut it off. So I would go to my bank and I'd say, yes, I'm overdrawn £3,000. I have every intention of paying it off. However, do not give me any more overdraft. Full stop. Credit cards, the same thing. Then so you can do that on day one, really. And even that action can be amazing at how much it clears the air, as it were. And then the second thing is write down everything you spend as you spend it. So this is business and or personal or both. And you write it in as much detail as possible. So go to the grocery shop. In this country, it doesn't really work because in this country, you can get your clothes, your dog food, your medication, your household goods, all of that, your phone. You can get all of that in the grocery shop, in the Sainsbury's or whatever. So you need to actually break that down. Because a lot of people say, I spend a fortune on food. And then they look at it and they go, God, I don't. I spend a fortune on weird stuff, like stuff for the pet or, another gift for a friend. And gradually, bit by bit, and generally about 6 weeks is a pretty good snapshot where you can start building up a picture of exactly what you spend on what and what you actually cost to live. So once you take out the gifts, I can't go to that wedding without a huge gift, then don't go to the wedding. Once you take out the huge amount of household goods, do you really need that much of cleaning product? No. And so on, and you gradually unpick it and you go, how much does it cost for me to be an operating human being in the world I live in? I can't go and live up a tree or live in a sack. That's not going to happen. So how much did it cost me? It's generally a real shock to people to find out how little they are actually living on. And all the rest is sort of what I call noise. It's perceived social etiquettes, it's ideologies. The other fabulous term I love using is zombie myths. Myths that won't die. If I have this product, if I have this thing, women spend so much on things like Botox. You can tell I don't, but people spend a lot of money on that. And you're going, you're married, that's why are you doing that? Oh, because it makes me feel better. Yeah, but the debt makes you feel worse. So that's a secondary thing, and it's generally a revelation to people. So that's why the early part is quite easy to do and unravel. And then the third thing is the debt that they have, which can be, I think the biggest amount I've had is about £1 million, but the small amount can be £1,000. Yeah, exactly. It varies tremendously, but it's the stress it creates in the person that defines it. So if it's £1 million and you don't give a shit, then it's not a problem. But if it's £1,000 and you're having sleepless nights, it's a problem. Yeah. So then I say, in my case, I put the debt on the left side of me. It's not there anymore, it's over there. Once you have a real clear idea of exactly what you need to survive as a person, and more than survive, to live, because realistically you can't do it for very long. You've got to live, you've got to have food, you've got to, even if it's a cup of coffee with friends once a week, you've got to have something. Then you start going to your creditors and you list them and you get a clear idea of what's going on. You'll probably almost certainly have a margin left over between what you need to survive maybe as a working person, maybe just as a partner, whatever it is, but how much I need to survive. And there'll be a margin left over, and that margin is then what you start to repay your debt with. Now, the one woman, I think, she had a thing about jerseys. She was always buying cashmere jerseys, hundreds of them. She owed £150,000. Her margin was £20 between what she needed. She had 3 children. What she needed to live on and what was left over, it was £20. And I said, right, you divide that margin up between all the different people, the credit cards, the store cards she used, and sometimes it was £2. I said, you approach them and you say, I'm going to pay you back in full, but for this particular moment, this month, I'm only going to pay you back £1 and I'm putting it on a standing order, and next month I'll approach you again. And most people think that the creditors won't accept this. And often they're furious. They'll go, for God's sake, you are blah, blah, blah. But as long as you approach them with full honesty and full responsibility, and you say this, over time, you can increase that pound, whatever it is. And in 100% of my experience, it clears the mind. People are no longer borrowing any further money. They're starting to put that time and resource into something productive, whether it's going back to work and behaving in a better fashion and getting... One guy, I think he was 4 months. He left school at 16. He's a real sort of wild East London. He's fabulous. And he finally got a job. He'd not had a job, living off his mum. He's 22. And he started working on the selling ski equipment. He's never been skiing. He's never been abroad. He doesn't have a passport. But his skiing equipment. In 4 months, they promoted him to manager. Now he's been sent on a management course and he just cannot believe it. And he's hoping next year he can go skiing.
Yeah.
And it's extraordinary because it's suddenly the can-do comes into play, the mind clears, and I've had loads and loads of these examples. And what I find in myself very difficult is when they get to the point where they're just about to pay off the last bit of debt, and sometimes the switch goes off and they go, some excuse comes into play and they go back into debt. And that breaks my heart. And sometimes I have to wait 2 or 3 years until they come back and they start the process again, with knowledge that it's not about the world, the government, the political system, whatever it is. It's something inside them that needs to, it's like a craving to be back in debt again. It's fascinating.
Yeah. That's heartbreaking listening to this kind of stories, really. So I think you have a lot to say about debt and how to get out of debt. A lot of stories to listen to get inspired from. So for people who wanna read your book, The Debtologist, where they can find it? They can order it online, or do you have a website where you sell it? Do you sell it on Amazon, or for
And
people who are interested in reading?
think I've got a website, but I'm just so hopeless. I wouldn't do that. I'd go straight to Amazon, and it's called The Debtologist, one word. Sorry, and then The Debtologist, one word. And my name's Sabrina George, and that's down the author.
Okay, that's great. This is what I wanted to hear. So yeah, on Amazon is going to be great because people can order it from there and read it, because this is so important. Because when you are in debt, where you are overloaded with debt, everything seems black to you. Everything seems closed. You have no open doors. You have no even feeling to talk to people. I know this feeling. This is so hard. So anyone who wanna get out of debt, spend meticulously, don't overspend. Not like the girl you said she used to buy Botox while she was married. This is just overspending. Anyway, anyone who wanna get out of debt, to know a little bit more about debt, George Sabrina has the book The Debtologist. You can order it from Amazon. You can type it on Google. You're gonna find it on Amazon. Thank you, Sabrina.
Thank you so much, Varun, and sorry about the whatever's gone on with the laptop.
No problem. Thank you so much, Sabrina, for your time and for all the information. I hope you very good day. Thank you so much. Bye bye.
All the best.
Thank you so much. Bye bye.